This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Hello, world, and welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. Today's sponsor is A2 Hosting. I've been using A2 Hosting solid state hosting solutions for our website at geekleader.com for many years now, and absolutely love their support, their service, and all the features that you get. You get access to cPanel. You get all of the things that you can imagine for a great WordPress experience, including their A2 optimized WordPress, which does extra security checks, extra lockdown. You can lock down your editor file so you can't edit anything inside there. You get alerts whenever there are file changes that are done. You can also do automatic updates, backups, and more with A2 Hosting. So highly recommend it. Go to geekleader.com/A2 to get more information and to sign up for their solid state turbocharged speed hosting today. Again, that's at geekleader.com/A2. All right, Geek Leaders. Today I'm honored to have Gahn Lane on the show. He is a transformative and collaborative executive with a lot of years of experience leading teams, and he is currently a strategic advisor to the CEO. So we're going to talk a little bit about what his leadership skills are, what his style is, and how can we learn from that so become better leaders in general. Anyway, with all that being said, Gahn, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be here.
If you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about your background and kind of your career path and how that journey has been for you and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Let me jump into that. So I started out, oddly enough, a college intern, undergrad in the industry, and worked my way up through the telco space, equipment manufacturing space, et cetera, primarily in voice. Mm-hmm. And from that, transitioned into sales. And then, like a lot of salespeople, I found myself put into a leadership role based on my success in sales, combined with probably a little bit of gift for gab, if you will. Mm-hmm. And from that, moved into growing responsibilities, and got my first executive role in the early 2000s. And had a great experience. My first experience was a great one with a lot of mentors, a lot of help. And one of the mistakes I made was not taking greater advantage of that. And then I'll come back to that later. And from there, went into distribution. Kind of refer to myself as a arms dealer for the tech industry. If you wanted chemical, conventional, or nuclear, I had it for you. And built a business unit, great success there. And after several years of that, I had never worked for a telco. So I went to work for a telco. All this is on my LinkedIn, so I'm not going to bog it down a lot of detail. But from a telco, got into software, and one thing led to another, and security. And probably 6-7 years ago, I really started to heat up in the cloud space. And then from that, got into more of advising companies, CEOs, and sales leadership on best practices for go-to-market. Global go-to-market is my specialty, but done both, can do both, global or domestic. And I'm currently advisor to the CEO of Tone Commander, which is a encrypted IP endpoint device firm that primarily sells to the Department of Defense and the U.S. government for encrypted and hardened devices. And so that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. So I want to go way back to what you mentioned before about having good mentorships. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because I know when I was first got into management, I had mentors too that kind of helped me along the way, and I probably would have really struggled without them. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience and what that was like for you?
Yeah, I'll talk about some of the people that really impacted me, if that's all right. I had a gentleman who unfortunately is no longer with us, was a Annapolis grad, and ex-Navy officer that was my first close working relationship with the vice president. He was the vice president of sales for the Sprint account, if you remember Sprint, for Nortel. And I came to work for him. His name was Jack Rush. And he taught me about never wavering from your goals, but also always making sure that your house is in order, always being scrupulous in your ethical behavior. Not that I was unscrupulous, but he just taught me and demonstrated the value of that. And he had folks that worked for him. There was a lady named Laurie McNamara, was very impactful for me. And Laurie, I'll never forget, she asked me to take a role in a totally different part of the business with technology I didn't understand. And I told her, I said, I don't know anything about the technology. I don't understand how to do it. I'm at a loss. I gave her all these no reasons to say no. We're staying on a sidewalk. I'll never forget. She said to me, she said, Gahn, she smiled. She said, Gahn, if you have the right attitude and the right priorities for your client, you can sell anything. It doesn't matter what the technology is. It's what's at the basis of your drive and your goals for you and them. And I remember that. A couple other people to fall out. CEO at Westcon, Dean Douglas, was very impactful for me. He's currently a professor at the University of Mississippi, but he came from the IBM school. And I actually worked for him a couple of times, 3 times, now that I think about it. And he followed the same rules, but he also taught me a lot about decorum and how to carry yourself in a boardroom and how to carry yourself appropriately at all times. And a lady named Lynn Murphy, who's a CEO currently of an outfit called Pluggable Technologies, but she's on a number of boards as well. And Lynn taught me taught me the skills to show the empathy I felt for my employees and to do it in an appropriate way that was not make any gender as uncomfortable as it could be, if you will. She taught me a lot of balance. So those are a few of my mentors that have really impacted me. I have several others, but those truly stand out as fantastic people who have made a big difference in my career and in my, frankly, in my life.
So I have a couple of questions kind of to follow up on that. When you talk about empathy, and that's kind of one of the things that I've always struggled with, is kind of putting myself in someone else's shoes to understand their viewpoint, because it's difficult for me to express that. Do you have any practical advice for someone like me that also struggles with that you've learned over the years that has helped you?
I guess what's helped me more than anything is I always remember, because increasingly, I'd say over the last 10 to 15 years of the last 20 of my career, which has been the crux of my business career, I've been in a role of change agent to some degree or another. The last few jobs, I was the change agent. I was recruited to do that. And change agent doesn't mean you have to declare genocide on an organization or on their go-to-market. It means you're changing some things. And I remember how scared I was at various points in my life, all the way back to when I was in high school and stuff. I get a new football coach or a new position coach. I'm from Texas, so football's king. But whatever sport you are into, hockey, lacrosse, soccer, it doesn't matter. Or a professor or whatever, and then all the way into business. When things change, it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest mistake firms make and individual leaders make is they do what they're comfortable doing. And I find if you're too comfortable doing something, you probably should get uncomfortable, at least a little bit. So I look at it and I to show empathy, I would probably say something to you like, look, I know this is tough. And I would try to relate it to something I've experienced. And I would say, here's how I was scared about this and or uncomfortable with this. It depends on our relationship, what term I would use. But I want you to know I'm sensitive to that, and I'm open to hearing your thoughts on it because I want you to feel good about this. This is important, and you're an important part of this. We can't reach our goals without you and your peers. I need everybody in the boat. And so it's important to me to understand what's bothering you or what your challenges are with this. And sometimes you get some good feedback that you hadn't thought of. I say sometimes often. I get great feedback from people, employees. I love skip and double skip level meetings where you're talking to somebody who, you might never see. You'll get the best feedback from them. I had a job with a carrier, and they had an event, a lunch I was asked to attend, and I sat at a table. It wasn't prepped properly for it. I go in, and they're a carrier, a telco, and the folks in there that we're supposed to sit with are card carrier and union installers that drive around in vans, rain and shine, et cetera, et cetera. And talking to them, sitting there, and those guys couldn't have had less in common with me. They were visibly uncomfortable talking to me for the most part. And I'm chatting with them. And come to find out as they opened up, and I said, so what's working for you? What's not? And, I went through a lot of stuff. It turned out one of the big problems they had was one of our procurement guys had bought tires for all the trucks and vans. He'd gotten a deal on them that saved us, I don't know how much money, but the tires weren't performing well for certain parts of the organization that were in cold, mountainous areas. And these guys were having a real hard time getting around, and some of them had gone and bought chains out of their own pocket to put on the tires of their trucks. Well, that's silly. They shouldn't be doing that. So that was a very informative thing, and passed that along. We followed up on it, and we improved our customer satisfaction by like 8 points or 8% in like the first month of the following winter, because those folks were able to get around and they had a better idea because they knew we cared, and that was passed on to the client. That's empathy. That's listening to somebody and not saying, well, tough, the company got to take a hit for the team. I realize that seems kind of out there, but that was a very real, easy to grasp example that comes to mind. But I've had it all over the place, and a lot of it's personality. Get to know people as best you can, get to know them and hear them out. We hear bad stories all the time. Currently in the news is the CEO who on all hands call, people are upset because they're not going to see a bonus. This CEO made $20-something million last year, and her organization isn't getting their bonus. And she told them it was time for everybody to leave the pity village. That's a direct quote. Well, you can imagine that did wonders for the corporate morale, and it made the papers. We hear the bad ones, but you don't hear about the good ones. You don't hear about the CEO who stopped and cared and found out that if they, did this and that and the other, it'd make a huge impact on people or their families. And that always translates to happy customers in the long run. I have yet to see a happy employee not make for a happy customer experience down the road.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And, when I look at morale and how important morale is just in general for a business success, and when morale's going down, what do leaders need to do to kind of flip that? And what can we do, even in, right now we're in a struggling economy, especially on the tech side. You hear about all these tech layoffs going on, and morale is kind of down for a lot of us tech employees. What can we do as middle managers and CIOs and CTOs and team leaders and IT executives do to get our employees' morale boosted back up, even though we're in this potential economic downturn?
Well, honesty for starters, courteous, caring honesty, not leave the pity village. Still can't believe she said that, but to have it depends on the size of your organization, whether you do it one-on-one or in a group in the office, whatever scales that you do it on a video broadcast, a Zoom or a Google Meet, whatever. But first and foremost, you say, hi, everybody. It's not a secret. Things are tough out there. That it's scary. And you rattle off the things that are concerning you, impactful. Whether it's conflict in Ukraine, which is nobody's going to get shot by their employees for saying that's a tough situation for those people, and it has a ripple effect for all of us. Politics, etc. Don't dig into the politics on who's right or wrong, just how it impacts things. You don't want to go there. You don't want to get into some sort of contest with anybody about their political leanings, but it's safe to say that global politics impact things all the way to small town Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Then you say, okay, well, we got a lot of costs that are up, and we have these things that have happened that are a hangover from COVID. The CEO I work for now has BC and AC before COVID and after COVID. That's how he rates everything, and it's very interesting. It's a good application. And AC is a different go-to-market. It's a different employee experience all the way around, including utilizing a media such as Zoom. And then you say, so we're holding our own, or business is down, or it's slightly up, or whatever. You go through the reasons, and you say, these are the priorities that I have. I'd ask for you to share with me as you for the portion that you contribute to the business with these priorities in mind as we go through this. And I will give you readouts. I personally believe a readout every 30 days is about right in times of challenge like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe every 90 days when everything's sunny in Philadelphia, as they say. But I think it's very critical that you are in constant contact. And you tell people, I mean it. If you want to reach out to me, that is welcome. I would welcome your thoughts or your concerns or your impacts. Can't promise that I'm going to agree with them. But if you want to shoot me a note and say, hey, I have this thought or this concern, I will certainly take it into account. And we'll discuss it with the rest of my ELT, my leadership team, or with the board or whatever is applicable to your business. And if you're a CRO or you're a sales VP, senior VP, or you're a manager, there are peers, there are immediate supervisors, there's somebody you can talk to about these things. Because anybody that's reaching out to you sees you as an upgrade. They see you as an escalation point, right? And for the purposes, for instance, of this engagement right here, you're my escalation point. So I reach out to you, I'm thinking that you're going to make a difference because you have insights I don't have. People all feel the same way. They all do. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I think you're absolutely right. I think that's what you want to do is you want to show people that you care in an honest way, connect with your peers, take questions, be as open and transparent as possible with your answers. I think everything you're saying is absolutely correct. I do want to switch topics though, and get a little bit of education from you because you mentioned about go-to-market. And a lot of us in tech, if we're, IT infrastructure or cloud operations, we may not know a whole lot about this go-to-market thing that you're talking about. Can you give us a little background of what is go-to-market and what do you mean by that? And what should we do or be aware of when it comes to that, when it comes to a tech leader?
Sure. Well, I don't think it's any secret, and I suspect the audience for your calls are highly effective folks, but so most of them probably know all or parts of it. But kind of the way I look at it, first and foremost, I always think of go to market. I think of myself as being in the hospitality business. I know that sounds a little weird, but hear me out. John, if I want you to take advantage of my services or my solutions or my products, my software, whatever, and I treat you like somebody in hospitality should treat you, i.e. a server in a restaurant or the front desk folks when you check into a hotel, I make you feel like I'm on your side. I'm there for you. It's you and me. We're in this thing together. You go to a good car dealership with a good sales guy, and he makes you feel like it's you and him versus everybody else to find the best solution for you, or the realtor, whatever. Think about all the best experiences you have. There's hospitality involved. They are trying to please you and make you feel like they are on your side. And if they're good, they are on your side. That's ultimately what they're doing, because you're going to ultimately avail yourself of what they're offering. So they are on your side. It's not, people say, oh, this is a lying sales guy or gal, or they're just trying to make me feel good. I don't believe anything they're saying. It's not that. It's that they are simply, and I'm simply, trying to make sure, for instance, with Tug Commander, I know I have the only U.S.-made, federally accepted, solid quality, encrypted IP devices on the face of the planet. I know that. So I want to get that message across clearly in my go-to-market. That's a key component of my go-to-market is I am the only one that is truly an American company with American manufacturing that's looking to take advantage of that to help you. And I have yet to have a single customer, single client say, well, I don't care if it's American made. I don't care if it's made in China, or I don't care if it's made in Russia or North Korea. They care a lot. And you're not going to go to jail for that. Well, it's the same thing. So hospitality is my first methodology. Always treat it as a hospitality move. Does that make sense, what I just said so far?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you about the hospitality part.
Okay. So I see it as hospitality. The next step I see is alignment. Hospitality and alignment are closely put together. So if you go to market and you have a solution, you got hospitality, that's step one. And it doesn't ever stop. Hospitality's from the beginning to the very last thing you do. When you cease to do business together, hopefully 20 years from now, you do it with a handshake and a smile. But then there's alignment. Is your solution, whatever it may be, aligned with the market and market realities? If it doesn't, you're going to fall flat. So hospitality, alignment, then it's frankly only then, you'd be surprised, but after that, it's are you best in class? Is your solution best in class or just okay? Now, that's not necessarily always wrong, because I had a guy tell me one time that a major vendor, I'm not going to name them, had won a big RFP that I lost to that vendor. I couldn't believe I lost. The vendor's product actually caught fire in the client's lab during testing. It caught fire. Yeah. Mine ran like a champ, but his caught on fire. However, he did a better job of aligning himself with the overall interest of the firm. And that client told me, is he best in class? No, you are. But is he good enough? Yeah. I'll never forget that. That was a humbling moment for me. He said, being best isn't always the key thing. It's being good enough because you align on so many other facets. And an example I'll give is it's a favorite whipping boy for a lot of people. Is Microsoft software the best in class every time, or even most of the time? Probably not. But it's good enough, and when they string the entire suite together, it's pretty impressive. They've got you, but there's very little software you need in your personal or business life you can avail yourself of utilizing Microsoft if you want to. Now, there's other options out there, some of which I prefer those other options, but they're not as common, or they haven't been historically. Some of them are gaining pretty good traction. So it's alignment, best in class, and then it's with best in class. Right after that, I would say my next priority as I plan my go-to-market, how I'm going to take something to market and gain share and maintain that gain. My next thing is, there's different ways to term it, but I term it experience, customer experience. So customer experience, it can be service. It can be both the service itself that's performed or the service and support of the device or the solution or the software. There's always a facet there. And then it's competitiveness. Doesn't mean you got to be the cheapest.
Right.
But, or if you have those other four, hospitality, alignment, best in class, and experience, then to be honest with you, competitiveness is already baked in somewhat. So you can usually command a better gross profit as a result of that. If you can't, you need to review those other steps behind that. People say, well, our margins are tight and it's just the fundamental behavior of the market. Well, then, is it the market or is it your product or your service or your experience or the hospitality? I mean, there's companies out there that do really well, but they suffer lower margins because they're notorious for being very inhospitable to work with. But people have to work with them. And their founders and CEOs live in places like Hawaii. I'll let people figure that out. But that's a famous example of a company, people that know what I just said, where that individual eats live chickens for breakfast and just doesn't understand why everybody tickled to death to be part of that. Well, it rubs people the wrong way. So they won't pay. And that company enjoyed a lock on things till the cloud came along. And now that company is really struggling with the relevancy. Meanwhile, you have other companies that maybe were small and had hospitality, they had alignment, they were best in class, customer experience, but their competitiveness was limited because they didn't have a solid alternative go-to-market. They didn't have thousands of salespeople, for instance. But what they've done now, they've formed alliances and aligned themselves with cloud service providers like Google or AWS. And all of a sudden, they're enjoying fantastic gross margin. The customers are happy. And business is moving up in the right direction. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's not magical or secret. Your go-to-markets, you also just need to also consider where you're going to market. If it's strictly domestic U.S., people say, oh, it's the same everywhere. Well, it's really not. Your go-to-market will be more successful if you take into account where in the U.S. you are. You and I are in the South, so the gymnastics that people go through to do business are different in our environments than they are for somebody in Boston,
Right,
or Seattle. And you have to take that into account, or Chicago, Hawaii. Those are all parts of the United States. To speak a common language, but have different go-to-markets, be it, ever so slight. But then if you want to move into EMEA, Dubai is hot. If you're going to go south into LATAM, a lot of people don't think about that, but Colombia is extraordinarily hot right now. People think of Colombia and they think of Pablo Escobar. It's quite the opposite. It's become the Switzerland of South America. Mexico, people think of either beaches or violence. Well, Monterrey, Mexico is a business hub like no other. It's fantastic. Dubai is a given. You go to the Asia Pac is probably in some ways one of the more difficult ones because of the distance. It's distance, first of all, because people like, I'd be in Singapore and somebody say, hey, while you're over there, could you run over to Australia and, talk to them about blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, run over. You realize that's a 9-hour flight. And, it's a 7-hour flight to Tokyo. I mean, Singapore's right in the middle. That is a huge distance, radically different cultures, different written word, different language, different religions, and they all are rightfully so extraordinarily proud of their heritage and who and what they are. And you've got to take that into account, and you got to learn how to play ball across the board. Africa, there's pockets in Africa. Right now, a hot one is Rwanda. People think of Hotel Rwanda and bad things. Well, Rwanda's actually transformed themselves quite well since that horrible war, and is a very solid place to do business. Ivory Coast. I'm talking about Sub-Sahara. Then you've got, of course, Africa and Morocco and places, or Egypt and Morocco and places like that. So every place I mentioned has a different and unique go-to-market, and you have to take that into consideration and plan your strategy accordingly. No one strategy fits all. So I'll stop a minute. That's a rambling answer. Does that help at all?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think that's really good. I think when you think about the international aspect, a lot of us in the United States don't realize all the changes that are out there. We're kind of oblivious to what's happening in the rest of the world sometimes. And I think it's really good to hear a different perspective.
Well, I've had some phenomenal experiences. I met some fantastic people, friends for life around the world. There's no continent I can't go to. I don't have some relationships. There's a few places I've been that I probably don't really want to go again, not because of people, but maybe if it's just a little dicey political environment then or now. But you have to keep a pulse on it. The first thing I look at every day when I get up in the morning is the international news. And, I don't just watch, fire up the news on my phone. I don't just fire up, say, CNN or Fox or MSNBC or whatever here. I also look at Canadian broadcasting. I look at the BBC. Look at the international editions of U.S.-based broadcasters. Because you learn a lot. There's a lot going on in a lot of different perspectives, and they can be bellwethers, and they have different margin opportunities, the margin expectations in Europe versus Asia Pac, the cost of employment. Do you want to employ people or contract people? What's it like Benelux, Belgium, Luxembourg, that part, versus doing business in Southern Europe like Spain or Portugal or Italy. It's different for every aspect of that. And it can be very, very positive. And it's extraordinarily lucrative for most people to plan ahead. And don't think for a minute you're too small to do it. Nobody's too small. The world is not as small as it used to be. And COVID has reinforced that. AC after COVID, if you're not going global or thinking about how you can work global, it doesn't mean the whole globe, but maybe it's just Canada or just, Central America or something. If you're not thinking about that, you're probably selling yourself a little short.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's 100% true. Gahn, it's been really good talking with you about this and learning a little bit about, the international strategies for go-to-market and things out there that, a lot of people in tech aren't really thinking about all the time. So it's good to have a different perspective and to think about that. It's also good to hear about and learn about, leadership techniques and how to display empathy sometimes when you're not exactly sure how to communicate that. I think that's been very helpful. How can people connect with you online and learn more about the things that you're doing?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I'm a avid LinkedIn user. That's probably my number one social media. My personal website is currently being redone, but it'll be accessible via LinkedIn soon. But you can also reach me on email at any time. My private email is ghlane, GHLANE at me.com. ghlane at me.com. That or message me through LinkedIn. I'd welcome the engagement, discussion, or input. If you think I'm all wet or you have something that I could build on from what I shared, I'd welcome that more than you know. And I really appreciate the opportunity, John. It's been a really nice experience. I hope I didn't ramble too much for your audience, but I really do like talking about this kind of thing. It's what keeps me going.
Awesome. And I'll link all that up in the show notes too at geekleader.com so people can connect to you that way. And Gahn, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I hope you have a great day.
If you enjoyed that episode, please leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. I'd greatly appreciate that. And also don't forget to check out merch. We have some t-shirts that I've designed that are on at geekleader.com. You can click on the merchandise section there and check that out. And also don't forget about the books from our guests. So if you like this guest and other guests that have written books, please go ahead and check that out at geekleader.com. I would greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure they would too.